Hello my friends, how are you? Do you know who was Kong Qi, known as Confucius? What he did? Why Chinese people called him philosopher and best teacher? If you don't know, it's okay, I will tell his long life history. Before starting his real life history, can you please subscribe my channel to support me? Now let's start. Kong Qi, nicknamed Confucius, was one of the most influential philosophers in Chinese and world history, who lived during a tumultuous period in China known as the Spring and Autumn period, 771–476 BCE. This era was marked by political fragmentation, internal strife among competing feudal states, and a general sense of social decay. Now the story begins. Confucius was born in 551 BCE in the small state of Lu, located in what is now modern-day Shandong province, China. His family name was Kong, and his given name was Chu. His full name in Chinese was Kong Chu, though later he would be known by the honorific title Confucius, Master Kong, which Latin scholars in later centuries rendered as Confucius. Confucius was born into a family of modest means, though his family claimed noble lineage from the Shang dynasty. His father, Kong He, was a warrior of considerable reputation, but died when Confucius was only 3 years old. His mother, Yan Zhengzai, raised him in poverty, instilling in him a deep respect for learning and self-cultivation. Though Confucius did not have a formal education during his early years, he displayed an insatiable curiosity and love for knowledge. As a young man, Confucius worked in various low-level government positions while pursuing his education independently. He read voraciously, studied ancient texts, and became well-versed in subjects like ritual, music, poetry, history, and governance. His intellectual development was heavily influenced by the writings of ancient Chinese sages, particularly those from the early Zhou dynasty. At some point in his late 20s or early 30s, Confucius embarked on a career as a teacher. He accepted students from various social classes, believing that education should be available to anyone willing to learn. He espoused the idea that moral cultivation was more important than social rank, a radical concept at the time. Confucius taught his students that through education and personal development, one could rise above their station and become a virtuous person. During this period, Confucius also became interested in governance and political philosophy. He observed the moral and social decay of his time and sought to restore order by reviving the virtues of ancient sages. After that, philosophical thought and teachings starts. Confucius' philosophy centered on a few core concepts that have become foundational in Confucian thought: Ren, benevolence or humaneness; Li, ritual and proper conduct; Xiao, filial piety; and Yi, righteousness. Confucius believed that the ultimate virtue is Ren, which refers to a deep sense of compassion and love for humanity. For Confucius, a person could not be considered morally upright unless they embodied Ren in their relationships with others. He often emphasized that practicing kindness and empathy was essential in both personal and public life. Confucius saw Li as the norms of behavior that maintained social harmony. Rituals were not merely religious or formal customs, but the proper expressions of respect and duty in all aspects of life, from family relationships to state governance. Observing Li would create a harmonious society by ensuring that people acted according to their roles and responsibilities. Central to Confucius' moral system was the concept of Xiao, or filial piety. This was the duty of children to respect, obey, and care for their parents and ancestors. Confucius extended the idea of filial piety to broader social contexts, seeing the family as a microcosm of the state. Just as children owed loyalty and reverence to their parents, citizens owed the same to their rulers. Confucius taught that Yi referred to the moral disposition to do what is right. This concept was tied to one's sense of duty and justice, even if it meant going against self-interest or risking personal safety. For Confucius, the key to societal harmony was moral leadership. He believed that rulers must govern with virtue and lead by example. A ruler who embodies Ren will inspire the people to follow them willingly and ethically. This idea was a stark contrast to the legalist thought of the time, which advocated for strict laws and harsh punishments to maintain order. Around 500 BCE, Confucius began seeking a position in government where he could implement his ideas of moral governance. He believed that if he could influence rulers to adopt his principles, he could restore peace and order to the fractured Chinese states. However, his political career was fraught with frustration and setbacks. Confucius held various minor government positions in his home state of Lu, including roles in managing public works and agriculture. His diligence and integrity earned him respect, and eventually, he was promoted to a higher office. Around 498 BCE, he was appointed Minister of Crime, a position of significant influence in Lu. During his time as Minister of Crime, Confucius implemented reforms aimed at reducing corruption and promoting ethical governance. Under his leadership, crime rates fell, and Lu enjoyed a period of relative stability. However, Confucius' policies also alienated some members of the ruling elite, who resented his insistence on moral conduct. After a political coup in 497 BCE, Confucius resigned from his position and went into voluntary exile. For the next several years, he wandered through various states, seeking a ruler who would heed his advice and implement his ideas of virtuous governance. Despite his fame as a philosopher, he struggled to find a ruler willing to commit to his vision. In 484 BCE, Confucius returned to Lu. By this time, his political ambitions had been largely thwarted, and he shifted his focus back to teaching and writing. He gathered a group of devoted disciples, who recorded his teachings and helped spread his ideas. Confucius spent his later years reflecting on the principles of ancient sages, compiling and editing important texts like the Book of Songs, a collection of ancient Chinese poetry, and the Spring and Autumn Annals, a historical record of the state of Lu. These texts would later become part of the Confucian canon. Despite his initial failures in government, Confucius' reputation as a teacher and moral philosopher continued to grow. By the time of his death in 479 BCE, he was regarded as one of the wisest men of his era, and his teachings had already begun to influence the development of Chinese thought. After Confucius' death, his disciples continued to spread his teachings, and over time, his ideas became the foundation of Confucianism, a system of thought that would dominate Chinese society for more than 2 millennia. During the Han Dynasty, 206 BCE to 220 CE, Confucianism was adopted as the state philosophy of China. The Han emperors recognized the value of Confucius' emphasis on hierarchy, order, and moral governance, and they established Confucianism as the basis for the imperial examination system. This system required government officials to be well versed in Confucian classics, ensuring that Confucian values would be deeply ingrained in Chinese bureaucracy. Confucianism also had a profound impact on education, family life, and social structure in China. Confucius' teachings on filial piety, respect for authority, and the importance of education became central to Chinese culture. His ideas also spread to other East Asian countries, including Korea, Japan, and Vietnam, where they influenced local traditions and governance. Over the centuries, Confucius has been revered as a sage and teacher whose wisdom transcends time and place. His focus on ethical conduct, education, and moral leadership remains relevant in discussions of politics, philosophy, and education today. Confucianism evolved into different schools of thought after Confucius' death. His disciples, such as Mencius and Shunzi, expanded on his ideas, leading to varying interpretations of Confucian thought. 1. Mencius, one of Confucius' most famous disciples, Mencius, Mengzi, emphasized the inherent goodness of human nature. He argued that people are born with a natural inclination toward virtue and that education and proper governance can cultivate this innate goodness. 2. Xunzi. In contrast to Mencius, Xunzi believed that human nature was inherently selfish and corrupt. He argued that only through rigorous education, discipline, and adherence to rituals could people achieve moral virtue. Despite this difference, Xunzi upheld many of the same values as Confucius, particularly the importance of li, ritual, and social order. Today, Confucius is celebrated as one of the greatest thinkers in history. His philosophy has transcended its origins in ancient China to become a universal framework for thinking about ethics, governance, and human relationships. His emphasis on the importance of personal development, moral integrity, and the cultivation of virtue has made Confucianism not only a guide for individual. In this way, Confucius became one of the most famous thinking philosopher of China as well as worldwidely. Now I think you know who was Confucius, what he did. And I would like to thank you, my friend, for reading and listening my story, and also thank you so much for subscribing my channel. May God bless you and your family.